This is the mighty and magnificent mining machine at the Silver Legacy Hotel Casino in downtown Reno. And I thought this would be an appropriate backdrop to tell you about a project that I've been thinking about for months. I've been wanting to share a first-hand account of what it was like to descend into the mines during the Comstock Lode in Virginia City in the 1870s. And since I work on location, I needed to find an authentic mine shaft. And last summer, I was shown one that would be perfect, except that I had to figure out how to get a camera down inside of it. Well, I figured it out, and let me show you what we did here on the Reno You Know. I picked up this old book in a used bookstore years ago, and I found it to be completely fascinating. This is The Big Bonanza, or The History of the Big Bonanza, which was written by William Wright, who went by the pen name of Dan De Quille. And Dan De Quille was a newspaper reporter in Virginia City during the silver boom of the 1870s. Dan De Quille was a reporter at the Territorial Enterprise newspaper for over 30 years in Virginia City, and on his staff was his friend, an up-and-coming journalist named Samuel Clemens, who was then developing his persona as Mark Twain. This book is a remarkable first-hand account of those days, and it was published in 1876. He describes the actual discovery of the Comstock Lode, the life in town, the goings-on in the saloons, mining accidents, and several other subjects. But what I liked best was his description of what it was like to be lowered down to descend in a vertical mine shaft in one of the safety cages that they used back then. Starting on page 227, he relates his account of being loaded into one of these cages and what it was like to be quickly lowered into the darkness of the earth. He relates his experience with a tinge of anxiety that he felt, knowing that the only thing between him and crashing to the bottom thousands of feet below was a flat braided cable. I'll show you an actual spool of that type of cable that they used coming up. Some of these vertical shafts went down thousands of feet, with the deepest being the combination shaft at 3,200 feet, which we will also visit in this video. He wasn't specific as to which shaft he was lowered into, although he did mention the Consolidated Virginia and the Ophir in his narrative. Also, we should note that these cages were called safety cages, a much-loved invention. In the unlikely event that a cable should snap, a couple of spring-loaded protrusions would snap out and lock the cage into place so it would not careen down to the bottom. My vision that I've been thinking about for months, usually at 4 a.m. when I can't sleep, is to share his detailed description of what it was like to be lowered down against the backdrop of actually going down inside a Comstock-era mine. And I did a lot of searching around, and I couldn't find the right situation until last summer when my friend Steve, who you might remember from our Black Bart Old Geiger Grade episode, he showed me the remains of the old Foreman mine, which is located about a mile outside of Virginia City. Real quick, if you haven't subscribed yet to our channel, could you please click the little subscribe button? It might be hard to find if you're watching this on your TV. So if you could negotiate your way back to this video either on your computer or your phone and click the subscribe button, that'll just help me grow this channel and get you even more compelling content for down the road. And also, before you leave, if you please click the little like button. That'll give the video traction and allow it to be seen by more people. Thank you. This shaft would be perfect except for one thing. Around 2 years ago or so, in the interest of public safety, a large grated cover was put up over the shaft. You can walk around on top of it, and if it doesn't make you too queasy, you can get down on your hands and knees and look straight down into a massive hole in the ground dug out some 150 years ago. So, how am I going to lower a camera down into the earth with this giant iron cover in the way? The cover is a thin grate and there is no opening to drop a camera through. Initially, I thought about somehow getting my drone through the bars on the side of the cover and flying it down, but I was not comfortable with that at all. My drone doesn't have warning sensors on the side, so what if I fly into a wall down there? It'll be dark, we won't be able to see, the iron grate might interfere with the GPS on the drone. I just wasn't having it. So one of my 4 a.m. ideas was to somehow get a fishing line strung across the underside of the cover, across the shaft, and lower my GoPro camera down with some lighting attached. So my kiddo Spencer and I headed up to Virginia City on a warm Saturday in March. All right, here we are at the Foreman shaft just outside of Virginia City. I'm up here with my kiddo Spencer, and let me tell you about our vision here. The shaft is under this modern, contemporary, kind of new seal cover thing. My thought is, and we're gonna execute it today, is we're gonna run a fishing line, 10-pound test, across the shaft under there. See the old supports for the hoisting works. I'll put up a photograph of an old photograph of the building that used to cover this whole site, so you can see that. But yeah, there's our subject down there. You can't really see down into it from this angle, but we'll go up above too. This shaft originally went down, not up. Shafts go down. As I understand it, about 2,200 feet down, long way, 2,200 feet. But I also read another piece of information online. I think the shaft is collapsed or was sealed at about 165 feet down. Don't know for sure until we send a camera down there. What I'm going to do is tie a fishing line to one of these rails here, and we're going to have to work it around. I initially thought, my first thought, bow and arrow. Let's get a bow and arrow, tie the fishing line across, and boom, right through. But the more I thought about it, I think it's just be easier just fish it through. Fish a fishing line through. Okay, so we're going to fish the line all the way around. So we'll have a fishing line tied straight across. I did some tests at my house with a GoPro on the fishing line, and I got this wobbly action, and even the horizontal leveling didn't really help it because it's a low light situation. So I'm going to opt to lower my drone and not flying the drone. I'm going to tie it off on fishing line and just lower the drone without the propellers going, because it's got a gimbal on it. And what a gimbal does is it's a camera stabilization system. So even if the drone's wobbling like this, the camera compensates for it, and it gives us a more steady picture, and that's what we want. There's our submersible. If Steven Spielberg ever sees this video, he's going to laugh himself out of his director chair. But hey, we're going for function here, right, kiddo?
Hell yeah!
All right. So we tried to stretch we actually did stretch a fishing line all the way into lengthwise under this cover, and we fished it through with coat hangers and such. Got it all situated, and I cut the line to re-secure it on the fence, and I dropped it, and the fishing line went down in the hole. So we had to after some profanity, we had to start from scratch. And so we looked over at this area, and if you can see down through there, the old workings are fenced off. So I figured, hey, what if we just tie a fishing line to a rock, throw a rock through there. Hopefully we don't hit the crossbars there, and boom, we can fish it up to the top, and we've got our span. And so that's what I did. I threw a rock through, and actually the rock broke in half, but we were able to fish out the line that was still tied to another part of the rock. We got it through, fished it all the way up to the top left there, and pulled it tight. And then we put all This is my jerry-rigged apparatus here. The drone. There was no way I was going to fly my drone in there. I don't have the right drone for it. And also I can get lights. These are little headlamps, LED headlamps that I use for lights. So we threaded this onto the line and tied an insurance line, and actually a retractor line, because if this is hanging way out 50 feet out there, and we need to get it back, you couldn't get it back unless we had an insurance line. So I had Spencer feed down an insurance line. So when we were done filming, he slowly pulled it back off the main line and got it back. So that was, like I say, nerve-wracking, and I'm not going to do it again. But I think we got some good footage. So let's check it out. Faith. Our conductor groups us upon the cage, showing us where we may safely grasp its iron frame for support, and finally all are in position. The engineer is standing with one hand on the lever of his engine, watching our proceedings. Our conductor turns towards him with a wave of the hand. Instantly, we feel ourselves dropping into the depth and darkness of the shaft. Our first thought is that between us and the bottom of the shaft, 1,500 feet below, we have nothing but the frail platform of the cage, and instinctively we tighten our grip upon the iron bars of the cage, determined that should the bottom drop out, we will be found hanging to the upper works of our strange vehicle. At the first plunge, all is dark, but suspended from the crossbar of the cage or in the hands of the conductor, we have a lantern or two, and by the light afforded by these, we soon begin to distinguish the sides of the shaft. Our view is very unsatisfactory, however, as all the timbers on the sides of the compartment appear to be darting swiftly upward towards the top of the shaft, just as trees, fences, or telegraph poles seem to be running backwards when we are flying through the country on a lightning express train. As we dart along down the shaft, we soon begin to pass the stations of the first or upper levels. Our speed is such that we see but little. We get a glimpse of what appears to be a room of considerable size, see a few men standing about with candles or lanterns in their hands, hear voices, and possibly the clank of machinery. An instant after, all is again smooth sailing, and we only see the upward fleeing sides of the shaft. Then there is another flash of many lights, a glimpse of half-naked men, a murmur of voices, and a clash of machinery, and we have passed another station. It is much like running past a railroad station in the night. We have been a long time in the shaft, though it takes but a very short time to make the actual descent. We can hardly realize that we are standing at such a great depth below the upper world and the light of day. All right, this here is a spool of the flat cable that these cages would be lowered down to in the mines. So there would be an engineer up at the top with the controls, and when they were ready, they would be lowered down. Imagine trusting your life to a piece of steel, coiled braided steel, I guess. And but apparently this is almost twice as strong as a single steel cable. So you were in good hands, but it still would make you feel uneasy. And actually, I brought Dan De Quille's book, The Big Bonanza, up here, and he described it perfectly. He said when he got was lowered down into the cages here back in the 1870s, most persons have observed the very active bobbing motion of a toy ball suspended from an India rubber string. The motion of our cage hanging at the end of the cable is much the same. The less one has of this particular motion, the more one enjoys it. When this motion sets in, we at once begin to speculate in regards to the probable amount of stretch to be found in a first-class steel wire cable, how far it may stretch before reaching the breaking point. It may be no more than 500 feet to the bottom of the shaft, but we feel that we do not care to risk falling even that short distance. All right, we decided to go out to the combination shaft. We're out here. We got a day to kill, so we're gonna go look at that too. We are not gonna send a camera down the combination shaft. That's been done, but it'll be cool to go take a look at it. All right, looks like some of the hoisting machinery is still here. Kind of hard to move it. I doubt that this dates from the Comstock days. I'm sure this was worked in later years. I am not the authority on that, but still cool to see all this up in here. What's the gear ratio on that, cowboy?
Quick maths. 128 to 1 or something like that.
Oh, okay, I'll go with it. They're such great undertakings so long ago. And it's all pretty quiet up here now, except for the dirt bikes in the distance and the pigeons cooing up at the top. There's an iconic scene here that every photographer that visits here should get. It's this, pretty cool, getting that rig in the front and Virginia City in the background. Hard to mess this one up. Either stuff was sent down that or sent up it. Now, I know there's mine guys here watching this who would be able to tell me exactly. Feel free to tell us in the comments. And down there's the covered shaft. We'll be up down there and see what we can see through the slats. Snow still here in March 1st. All right, so the combination shaft was, I believe, the deepest one in all of the Comstock. And there's that wide shaft. This being the biggest, I would tend to guess that there were probably 2 or 3 side-by-side cages going down here at any given time. Pretty cool. All right, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Reno You Know. And we're finishing this up in Virginia City, and let me see if I can say this mouthful, the Virginia City Jerky Company and Smokehouse Barbecue. So we're gonna have a pulled pork sandwich, and we're enjoying, Spencer and I, a Lagunitas IPA. This is the only beer currently on draft here, so I have no choice but to have a Lagunitas IPA, and that's fine. Boy, we had some moments of anxiety. I had some moments of anxiety. I don't know about you, Spencer, but I did, sending my poor little drone out on this razor thin wire, and never know if it's going to break or crash into a rock down there, but it all worked out. I'll edit all this together, and we should have a fun episode. That's all I've got. They're calling our names, so I gotta go. So I'm going to just say, as Harold S. Smith Sr. of Harold's Club always said, I'm with you. Cheers.